Today, I want to talk a little bit about turning the world upside down. But as I do that, I need us to be focused a little bit because we are now 1 week away where we as a community choose our leaders for next year. Those who will stand on council, represent us in diocesan things. You know, we've got an elective assembly happening on the 4th of February next year. So it's quite important that we begin and spend this week prayerfully considering how we are going to participate in building the kingdom of God in these parts. So notice is hereby given of a special vestry meeting to be held in terms of Diocesan Rule 27 on Sunday the 25th of October 2015 after divine worship in the church hall. That will be around about 9:30. We'll go out and go into the hall and to consider the following business. And it's incumbent upon me to read the agenda. So the agenda, number 1, welcome. Number 2, election of a secretary. Number 3, to decide on the number of councillors to serve for 2016. Number 4, election of church wardens and alternate for 2016. 5, election of parish councillors for 2016. 6, election of 2 synod representatives and 2 alternates. 7, election of 2 elective assembly representatives and 2 alternates. Number 8, closing of the meeting. And it is signed by the church wardens and myself in terms of the rules. What I'm talking about today is really about how do we lead? The gospel passage that is set for today delivers a powerful reminder that all the ambitions that confront us in the office, on the job, in whatever community we live in our church, all the pettiness that poisons our lives, and all the jealousies that we feel are not something unique to us, nor is it unique to our way of life. Even the disciples all those years ago experienced what we experience today. So I'm going to just unpack the story a little bit, and hopefully somewhere within this, as you consider your own calling in service of God in this community, as you consider your way of giving of your time and your talents and your treasures, prayerfully, what it really means to be a servant. And each one of us, not just me that wears fancy clothes on a Sunday, are servants. We are servants of the gospel. We are servants of the kingdom. And we are servants of the person we call brother, we call king, we call friend. And that's why it's important. So we have 2 of the 12, 66% of the inner core. Jesus' dear friends, James and John. Somewhere else in the gospel they're called the sons of thunder. And they come to Jesus. In Mark's gospel, John doesn't seem to be the same loving and beloved disciple of the 4th gospel. He is ambitious. And he doesn't want to share the power his position as a disciple of the most popular man of the time gives him. In other words, he wants it all, and he wants it now. Those of you from my generation probably want to sing that song. I want it all. It is useful to to bring into this sermon now is that in another gospel, James and John don't come to Jesus themselves. They get their mother to do it. Yeah, you know. So they were not without their faults. So I want you to just imagine the scene. John and his brother take Jesus aside. And in a way, this causes immediate suspicion with the others, the other 10. But James and John are, in terms of Mark's gospel, fairly determined. The first thing they do is to bargain the answer to their request. You know, often somebody comes to me and says, Father, I want you to do me a favor, without actually telling me what the favor is first, expecting me to say, yeah, of course, I'll help you out. They do exactly the same. And they say to Jesus, we want to know ahead of time that you will do it. Like children, they say, teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. I think it's the most primitive form of our prayers. Oh, please, give me this one thing, God, and I will not ask for anything else. Yeah, that doesn't last long. Or maybe like this, you say you answer prayers, God, so I'm counting on you to answer this prayer of mine. And yes, indeed, God does answer the prayers, but not always the way we want them. But even though they come to him with this immature approach, Jesus doesn't put them down. He asks them to define their request. What is it that you want me to do for you? Boys, I want you to hear yourselves articulated. That's what he's saying. I want you to hear yourselves articulate your request. As John tells us in his gospel again and again, the Lord who knows the heart knows what they will ask. But Jesus wants them to hear their ambition and how ludicrous their request actually is. I imagine that they never forgot the lesson they learned that day. They want the highest positions when it comes to his kingdom. That's what they want. They want to have the places of power. They want to have the place of honor. They want to have the place of privilege. It must have been terribly sad for Jesus to hear his two very close friends, two that have followed him for so long, ask for something that showed they understood little, if anything, of what he had been teaching them. That his kingdom is not of this world, and that his glory will come at the greatest possible price. The rest, of course, he will teach them shortly afterwards. And so he asks with great sorrow, can you drink from my cup? This was an expression that they were bound to understand. The Psalms and Isaiah refer to the cup of salvation and also the cup of wrath, either blessing or judgment. The baptism was the total acceptance of God's way. Today, we would ask, can you take it? Are you sure you are ready to die? Are you sure you can take the pain? You don't know what you're asking. How many times have we asked God for something and the answer came, you don't know what you are asking for? Poor James and John. Poor us, I suppose. You don't know what you're asking for. They thought they were ready. Yes, of course we can. We can drink from that cup, no problem. And I'm sure that after the horror of the cross, the joy of the resurrection, the coming of the Holy Spirit, and the suffering of the early days of the church, they must have really understood what Jesus was talking about. And it was a good thing. Because if tradition of the church is accurate, they both died violent deaths of persecution. Yes, Jesus tells them, you don't know what you're asking, because you indeed will drink of my cup and be baptized with my baptism. But actually the rest is not up to me. It's up to God. Jesus will not deal with favors. Jesus only deals with faith. Biblical scholars tell us that this passage was probably added by the church after the two disciples had already met a death similar to that of their teacher. But we don't know that for certain, actually. As he knew about himself, Jesus also knew what awaited those who chose God's way. The other disciples apparently heard the whole discussion. And you know what it's like in the office, eh? Those of you who've worked many years and have actually decided to retire from that, and those who are going into the office, you know, when somebody else asks a favor, but why can't I go and do that? The other disciples didn't like this discussion that Jesus had with James and John. And they became angry. How dare the sons of thunder ask for favors? Were they better than the rest? Jesus patiently takes them all aside and once again tries to give them a clear understanding of what they chose when they put out into deep waters and let down their nets for a catch. It is time for a reality check. The disciples are still hoping that Jesus will overthrow the Romans and become an earthly king. Of course they were. So Jesus tells them a thing or two about these earthly rulers, the Gentiles. Look, the great ones among you, he says, not only are they bossy, the greatest among them are tyrants. He's showing them the meaning of human greatness as it applies to the rulers. And I think nothing's really changed. Even in the most sophisticated democracies, we have these tyrants at the top. What Jesus is doing is showing them the meaning of human greatness. The rulers are merciless. They're cruel. They're oppressors. That is what tyrants are. Jesus and the disciples knew about the Romans and the way they treated the people of the places they occupied. And Jesus tells them, look at them. But it is not like that among you. It shouldn't be like that among you. He gives them what they think they want to hear, but it is what turns their world and possibly ours upside down. It is not so among you. So you want to be great, right? Become a servant. You want to be first? Become last. Become a slave of all. What revolutionary values are these? It's the wrong way around. Our society teaches us, get to the top, become the ruler. And it doesn't matter who you step on to get there. And yet our Christian faith tells us it's upside down. No wonder the same leaders, political and religious, of that day had Jesus crucified. They didn't want to give up their positions of privilege, power, and honor. Of course not. They didn't want their slaves to become first. They didn't want the great to be servants. They wanted to be served. And are we surprised? It's like this even today. Only today we don't crucify the revolutionary. Well, maybe in some cases we do. But in our society, we actually ignore the revolutionary. We say, he didn't really mean it. It was Oriental exaggeration he was using, a figure of speech. Yes, but no one dies for a figure of speech. What Jesus did and what Jesus said, he meant. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Ultimately, the day came when they understood these words. The thing is, do we understand these words? How many times do we meet a politician, a clergy person of whatever rank, an important person, and ask, is this person a servant of the people? Is this person a servant of the congregation? Is this person a servant of God's children? Do we enter into that job or that position in order to serve or to be served? These are questions that each of us must answer in our own hearts. We need to remember as we do so what Isaiah says about the suffering servant. This is not an easy road to travel. And at the same time, we need to keep in mind what the epistle to the Hebrews says. The word of God is living and active, sharper than a two-edged sword. It is able to judge the thought and the intentions of the heart. And when we hear and understand, we realize actually how difficult this life of servanthood is, and how often we fail. And it's something that we need to hold on to as we choose our leaders next week. The thing is, we go on to read in the letter to the Hebrews, and we find strength there. We have one who in every respect has been tested as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Amen.